All right, YouTube, Repo Man 64. I listened to Prophetic Watchman 88 today, and his video on Zipporah was incredible. I really enjoyed listening to that. I listen to a lot of y'all when I'm at work and see if I can catch a piece of your puzzle. Um, there is a verse in the Bible that says that one will, I guess, in paraphrasing, deliver the message. That one is the bride. That bride is all of you, and all of you have a piece of the puzzle. Don't let anybody tell you that your part is insignificant. Just think about any part of your body that's missing. I have several, a couple of surgeries, intestinal and appendix, and several surgeries, but those parts that were given are very important. Everyone serves a different purpose, and everyone has a piece of the puzzle. And I'm so uh, happy to hear that a lot of you understand that and how important that is, that all of us together make up the bride, and it is one. We are one. We are the body. Jesus is the head. Now, I'm going to take you through, um, as usual, a series of pictures that I've taken and explain why I took that picture. And I want to remind you that, and I say this all the time, but I really want it to sink in. The saints of the tribulation are very important. Very important. We have a job to do, and that is to warn them not to take the mark. They will show up in heaven in seal 6. They will have washed their robes white. They will be carrying palm branches. They will be comprised of a great multitude that no man can count. It's a huge group of people, billions. You can't count them. There's so many of them. The bride is going in a pre-tribulational rapture. Typically, when you read a story, you always search for the bride. She's usually obscure. She's not in your face, and she's hidden. Uh, she exists, obviously, we're going, but she's hidden in the story. Just like with Barabbas and the thief on the cross that accepted Jesus and the thief on the cross that didn't. Barabbas is the bride. The thief on the cross that accepted at the last moment is the tribulation saint. Huge mosquitoes I hear in the secret broadcast cave. I got to keep an eye out. I need to make sure I get back inside with some of my blood left. And the thief that never accepted Jesus is the Jew. The Jew, through the tribulation, will not accept Jesus, not all the way up until the very end, where they will look up and cry that at the one that they had pierced. They will finally, and that's the point of tribulation, to turn the hearts and the minds of the people. There's only one way to heaven. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're at on the planet. There is only one way to heaven. God is going to begin supernaturally warning them. There will be 144,000 virgin Jewish males that will be warning during that period of time. There will be two witnesses, Moses and Elijah, not Enoch. Enoch was pre-flood. That was a different dispensation. Remember that there was no law. The head of the year was in September, but when God came, he moved the head of the year from September to March. God doesn't change. He is the same character, the same personality. He is the judge. He is the forgiver. He is the savior. He is everything to us. He doesn't change, but he changed the head of the year. And I've heard the argument that God doesn't change. You're right, he doesn't. His nature can't change. He can't become evil. But he did think before the flood to wipe these people out, just wipe them out, because I'm tired of it. I don't want to continue on with these people. We can start over again. And he was God. He could have done it. But what did he say he did? He repented. He changed his mind. He recognized that There was Noah, and he cannot destroy the saved with the unsaved. Same thing happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. He was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, but what happened? Abraham negotiated with him. He said, if there are 10, I won't do it. But guess what? There were not 10. The same thing happened in Nineveh. He was going to destroy Nineveh. Even Jonah took a front row seat to watch Nineveh be destroyed. But it didn't happen because God repented. He changed his mind. So, but does that mean God changes? The answer is no. So the very first law handed down to Moses, there were laws previous to that about circumcision and stuff like that, but the very first law handed down to Moses was this today, now, is the head of your year. It will be the first month of the first of the year to you, and from this day you will count forward 10 days, and that will be the day you take in the lamb, and you hold it for 4 days, and then on the 14th day you will sacrifice that lamb, and you will put blood above your doorstep, above your door jam, what is that called? Door pathway there. And mantle, what do you call the doorway up there? And then that night I'm going to show up and I'm going to kill everyone who doesn't have that blood up there. And of course, this is a picture of Jesus Christ covering our sins. Everything that he did with the animal sacrifices and the blood on the door post, they call it door. I can't think of the name. But everything he did was pointing to, I don't know what happened, pointing to, we were watching Prophetic Watchmen. What happened? I mean, we're watching Zipporah. There we go. Not getting good internet out here. Hopefully this uploads with volume today. Otherwise, I'm going to have to make a live at the end of this. All right. So, God doesn't change, but he clearly says, I'm changing the head of the year. And what is the name of the head of the year? It is Rosh Hashanah. Now, I suspect as we go forward, and like I said before, God will probably use multiple timelines, but they are going to culminate together. So a date might mean something to me, but it might mean something else to somebody else, but come to the same date, the same conclusion. Different pieces of the puzzle, all roads leading to this rapture event. And that's what we're looking for. So I just wanted to clarify um, pieces of the puzzle. You all have them. Every single one of you have a piece of this puzzle, whether you see numbers everywhere you go, you're having dreams, you're having visions, um, I mean, just you name it, a whole mathematics, Eco Symphony, and her engineering skills with her math. She was just on God a Minute the other day. Fantastic video. Um, Peter here, Prophetic Watchman 88, really good at digging out information in the Bible about Zipporah, which was awesome. I loved listening to it. So let me get into the pictures. Now, I showed you this before. What are we saving people from? We aren't saving anybody, God is. But what are we warning people of? Are we warning them of the tribulation? No. Are we warning them of being not caught up to heaven, but staying here on earth and going through 1,000-year millennium where at the end they will have to make a clear choice for Jesus? No. We are warning them about the lake of fire at the bottom, because once you go there, you never come back. Once you land in the lake of fire, that's it for you. I believe I am a bride, but I would prefer to be either the bride, a tribulation saint, or a millennial saint than go into that lake of fire where I will be eternally separated from God. When you warn people of this day, look, I had an appointment yesterday, right? And in an attorney's office, and I had to go in there, and we're sitting there waiting for about 30 minutes for a Zoom call that I had to be involved with. Got my suit on, everything else. And I'm just talking to the girl, the attorney on my side, and I said, "Are you a Christian?" She said, "Hi, I was raised a Christian. I went to Christian school." And I said, "Are you aware the rapture is about to happen?" She's like, "No, what is that?" And so I have a wonderful opportunity to tell her all about the rapture and if you see me go. So now I know that I know that the seed is now planted, that if she sees, I said, when you see this event take place, it wasn't aliens, it wasn't some weird thing that happened, it was the rapture. And if you're still here, if you go, great. If you don't and you're still here, don't take the mark. So I did, that's how I do it. I warn them that way. And they seem to be more apt to listen than to say, "Do you accept Jesus?" Of course, we want them to accept Jesus, but that they will. They absolutely will because they heard you say, "Did you see me go?" So, very important. And again, I, I'm not all alone on this, but I don't see a lot of people as concerned about the tribulation saints. These are your family members. They're your children. They're your parents. They're your cousins, aunts, uncles. It's very important that each one of us tell them, "If you see me go." And that way, when you go, and you're not, I mean, wouldn't it be beautiful if they just kneeled down in front of you and says, "Please, I accept the Lord. I'm scared," just like they did in Nineveh. But that, I've never seen that really happen before. But when I warn them like that, I know that this attorney is going to go home and with this, and maybe she'll YouTube something on this effect and find one of these people, like Peter here, that has a piece of the puzzle, and she'll listen to that, and then he'll mention another channel, and then she'll go listen to that, and then that's why I promote other channels, because I know that if somebody who has some faith, maybe a little fear, when they see that, they will, or hear me, and then they watch a video. In that video, I promote other people because then maybe they'll go to their videos. Again, I don't hold all the pieces of the puzzle. I'm glad that I don't. I don't want to hold all the pieces of the puzzle. I want to put my piece of the puzzle in there, and I want to watch all of the other people without degrading them in any kind of way and learn from them and grab those little pieces and see if I can apply it to a puzzle. Let me get back to what I was saying. All right. So, as you know, when God says you are saved, you are not saved from the tribulation. You are saved from the lake of fire. Once you have the covering of the blood of Jesus, you are saved from the lake of fire. That is the most important thing. You've seen this before. As a matter of fact, she saw this because I was showing her my timeline here, and I skipped on this by accident. I said, "Why don't you take a picture of this? And when you get home, whoever else has a phone can use their phone to go into this app." And I said, "This will explain." And again, I don't know where I got this from. I've had it for months. I don't know who put it together. I know that if you contact Garrett, the news guy, he will send you, or anybody you request of him, he will send them a flash drive with all of this information on there. So he's a really good source of help for the tribulation saints. Again, very important to me, the tribulation saints. Where are we at now? We have just passed Purim on February the 29th. It moves to February the 29th in a leap year. It is 11 months and 11 days from the head of the year. We are coming up on tomorrow, March the 2nd. I don't know why I have a DAR 17 on here. I don't recall. There was some kind of event that took place here maybe a year or two ago, and that's why it's there. But the next major event is up here. Lazarus sick on March the 13th. Mary and Martha send I said message, but a messenger I think it was two messengers to Jesus regarding Lazarus being sick. She sends them on March the 14th. It is a 2-day walk. As we know, Jesus sat still for 2 days and then walked for 2 days to get to Lazarus to raise him from the dead. So that means it would have taken 2 days for these messengers to get to Jesus. Excuse me. That's March 14th. They get to Jesus on March the 16th, the day of equal parts, and they say, you got to come back. Mary and Martha are stressed because Lazarus is really sick, and Jesus admits that he, in fact, has died. And then he sits still for 2 days. Nobody knows why. For the last 2,000 years, I've never heard anyone explain why. And the reason why is because March 17th is Rosh Hashanah. It is the new year. You have to sit still for 2 days on Rosh Hashanah. The Jews have not abided by this. As a matter of fact, 400 years before this event here, 430 years before this event right here, King Antiochus forced the new moon calendar on the Jews. And there's a warning in Enoch. If anybody says, I'm using the Enoch calendar, and on the new moon, they are not using the Enoch calendar. They are not using it because Enoch is very clear about using the moon. You do not use the moon for anything. You set it and you forget it. It always starts on March 17th. The last Sabbath will always happen on March 16th. This year, March 16th will fall on a Saturday. Last year, it was on Thursday all year long. So March 16th, Lazarus dies. Jesus sits still for 2 days after finding out the one that he loved had died. And then it took him 2 days to walk back to where Lazarus was, and he raised him. So we are in this period of time now. There are several verses in the Bible that you will read that say on the last day. As a matter of fact, here on my wall, or hanging here, or it used to be on my wall, hanging here, and it's been, I've had this for many years hanging here because it's my favorite verse. John 6:44. Nobody comes to the Father lest the Father draw him. And I'll show you that in a moment. And he will raise us up in the last day. So I never honestly put that together with a date, but I've always liked that verse. And I've never really thought about why until I really, I believe, understood the verse. So let me go back to that. Whoops. That's how she saw that. She got a picture of it. Let me go back to the head of the year here, March 16th, the last day of the year, setting up the Sabbaths for the following year because God knew, that was a big mosquito, God knew that they were wrong, and they would be wrong. He's God, he knows everything, that they would be wrong on their calendar. And he knows that they'll still continue to try to worship the moon and use it. The moon has nothing to do with the head of anything, the middle of anything, has nothing to do with any of that. It is a harbinger, a warning for things to come, much like we're about to see with this eclipse. That's what the moon is for. It is a huge warning. It is not to set up anything. So, March the 17th is Rosh Hashanah. It was set up, as you can read, in Exodus 12. God told Moses, the very first law ever handed down to Moses was in Exodus 12, that this now is the head of your year. We moved the time back 182 days, and it just so happens to land on the day after the day of equal parts, which, as far as I can see, forward and backward, it never changes. The sun moves through the constellations. The moon's never accurate. It's only 354 days in a year. But the one thing that never, ever changes is the day of equal parts. It never does. So this is the day Lazarus dies. 2 days later, I'm sorry, 4 days, well, 2 days later, Jesus walks. He can't walk because he's abiding by the law that he himself set up on Rosh Hashanah, even though nobody around him knows it. But this is the day that no man knows the day or the hour. And it's twofold. One, because it's the 16th and 17th. And secondly, it's because they don't know that it moved. They did not pay attention to the fact that it moved. They're still looking at September. So Lazarus is resurrected on March 20th. We know that on March 20th, we see events on other people's timelines that are taking place on March 20th. He has a meal with Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. He cannot have this meal with Mary and Martha prior to, they buried him. They buried him on the 16th. They are unclean now for 7 days. You can see down here in pink, it says 3 days. From the time they buried him on the 16th, 3 days, Mary and Martha had to perform a ceremony. This is in Leviticus. It's a Levitical law. After 3 days, they have to perform a ceremony. And then 4 more days, totaling 7 days, Mary and Martha are clean after 7 days. Now that they are clean, they can prepare food for Jesus and Lazarus, and Jesus will go in there and eat with in Lazarus's house. This will happen on March the 24th. Then we see the triumphant entry. This is the day Miriam, Moses' sister, older sister, she's 7 years older, and Patrick over at End Time Watchman did an incredible video on the fact that this is the 7 year tribulation that we're seeing in the ages of Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. You got their 3.5 years apart, 7 years in total. So it's amazing that it gives us their ages and the dates that they died. Nisan 10, which would be March 26th. This is also the triumphal entry. And then Jesus goes to the cross. The anniversary will always be on March the 30th. It never moves. And isn't it amazing that they're saying that on March the 31st, it's Easter. Now, Easter is the day that he rose, according to the Catholics, but he actually rose on April the 2nd at nightfall, 3 o'clock, probably 3 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd, Saturday. We believe, a lot of people have researched this, that Jesus was in the grave for 84 hours in total. He does not cut any time short. Well, I died at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to be in the belly of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. So that 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 6, that counts as the first day, 3 hours. No, Jesus spent a full 72 hours and then some, total of 84 hours in the grave. And I have yet to find anybody who can legitimately refute this other than saying he went to the cross on a Wednesday. He rose on a Sunday morning. We know he rose on Sunday morning because the Bible says the first day. He goes to the cross on a Wednesday. This entire week is Passover. Nobody is allowed to do anything until when? The end of Passover. When does Passover end? Well, it ends on Sunday. They go to the tomb on Sunday. It ends at nightfall on Saturday, so in the morning they went to the tomb before the sun rose on Sunday morning. Jesus appears to them. As a matter of fact, he appears to them throughout the day, and then he rises to heaven. Why does he go to heaven? And we hear nothing about him until Thomas in the upper room, because he has to perform the wave sheaf offering on our behalf on the ark in heaven with his own blood. He paid the penalty for our sins. He's up there for 7 days. He does the wave sheaf offering on Sunday morning, just like he rose Sunday morning, and he returns to Thomas in the afternoon in the upper room, just like he left that afternoon to go to heaven to be up there for 7 days to perform the wave sheaf offering. It's exact mirror from the time he left to the time he came back. Then we have a week of no bread. The Bible says after the wave sheaf offering, there's no bread for a week. We have those no bread days, and then we have Jesus showing up on the shore with what? With bread and fish. Couldn't have brought bread and fish during that week if it's a week of no bread. So he shows up to them and tells them to pull in the net. They pull in 153 big fish, and they do that on, I believe that's April the 17th, IR2. So anyway, you can get this timeline for yourselves. We have it in the Discord, but you can also go here at the bottom. If you're looking at the chat, you can just turn your phone and then pick it back up and the chat will disappear. But at the bottom here, endtime-studies.com, and Sister Sandy's been so gracious to build this timeline for me. And it's much easier to read than my crayon one that I had previous to this one. All right. Now, again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about this. And God is not only talking to the bride, we make that huge mistake. Everything's for the bride. It is not. As a matter of fact, a very small portion is for us. A very large portion is for the saints of the tribulation and for the Jews that go into the millennium. So when speaking in the Bible, we see more about the two thieves that reviled him and accepted him than we ever heard about Barabbas. Barabbas doesn't even have a single word recorded out of his mouth in the Bible. But Barabbas is the picture of the bride. It's like the five virgins with oil and five virgins without. We keep hearing, oh, the five with oil are the bride. No, they're not. The five they all 10 fell asleep. None of them are the bride. We know that because Jesus, when he comes to pick up the five with oil, is called the bridegroom. He already has his bride. Again, obscure, quiet, quick. The bride disappears very quickly without a lot of muss or fuss. They will be eating and drinking, and the day will be going along as normal, and the bride will simply disappear. The bride will be raptured out of here. It'll just happen that quick. And the same thing with Barabbas. Not a single peep out of him, but he was a bride because that's what Jesus wanted. It's not because he was so great, because we know Barabbas was not a good guy. It's not because we're so awesome. It has nothing to do with being awesome. We're as filthy sinners as we can be, but for some reason, God chose us. All right. So we see this throughout the Bible, and if you know that rule that I just told you, then you will finally be able to pick up on these things when you read them. You will notice these things. This is Matthew. Matthew is predominantly speaking to the Jews who go through an entire 7 years of tribulation until they finally accept Jesus. And what does Jesus say on the cross, according to Matthew, while addressing the Jews? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Same thing in Mark. What are the sleepy church, the tribulation saints going to say? What's the Jew going to say? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? What's the tribulation saint going to say? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? There's two groups that are going to say that. Interesting. In John, representing mostly the 144,000, it is finished. It is finished. The 144,000 will be here. Warning, do not take the mark. They will have a double portion. They will have more spiritual things happening than we're seeing right now. And we're seeing the veil being thinned. We're seeing things that we'd never seen before. People are sending in videos to Mr. MBB333 of pink skies and green skies and black rainbows and black circles around the. It's incredible. The veil is being thinned. And what does it say? When Jesus therefore received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. He's not saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He says, it is finished. That is the 144,000 virgin Jews. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. Jesus gave up the ghost. They didn't kill him. He gave up the ghost. To the Luke group, to the bride. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. There are several things that are going to happen on March the 16th. The midst is going to happen at nightfall in Israel. That's the midst. That's the moment in time where it changes from the 16th to Rosh Hashanah. The other midst, it is the moment in time where it's going to change from 5783 on the Jewish calendar, or 5993 if you add the 210 lost years, over to 5784 and 5994. It's going to switch over at that moment. And what do we read? And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. Again, once you learn this stuff, you start picking up on the inner details. Mostly I passed this verse over so many times, didn't even understand what I was reading until I knew these things and then realized I could apply them. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, what does he say? Does he say, my God, why is it? No, he says, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. You see, he doesn't scream, why have you forsaken me? He is speaking for the group that he has. When Jesus died on the cross, he saved all those people from the lake of fire. He saved all of the bride. He saved all of the tribulation saints. He saved the 144,000 when they say it is finished. He saved the Jews who will not believe until the very end when they will look up and realize the one that they had pierced. He saved them all at that moment. And he is speaking to each group individually. And that's why we say, oh, it's just their writing style. No, you don't hear somebody say something on the cross and their writing style differentiates from my God, why hast thou forsaken me to Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. You don't make that mistake. Your writing style doesn't change that dramatically. So, no, this is speaking to the bride. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. We give up everything. There is nothing here that we want. There's nothing here we will ever look back for. We will be looking straight ahead, going into heaven. So happy that this mess that we've been dealing with is behind us. And I don't want to look back at anything down here. There's nothing here that I will miss when this moment happens and takes us out of here. Did you know that here in the year 2024, we have officially entered the age of Aquarius? That beautiful story we see in heaven from, of course, I'm going to forget the names. You know what? I'm not going to forget the names. I'm just going to go to the app and look at the names because I'm terrible about names. I am the worst with names. Gemini, that's where the sun was at creation. God together with man. We come down here. Whoops. Right there. My goodness. Hold still. Okay, right there. Ugh. Right there, in between the horns of the bull, is where the sun was in 1656 from creation when the flood occurred. Down here. At the very bottom, just beginning to come into Aries, at the very bottom is where we had, excuse me, is where we had Abraham. Abraham, from 0 year to Abraham, they're saying it was 2,000 years. From 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus, it is right here in Aries. For the last 2,000 years since Aries, we've been going through Pisces. And for the last 1,000 years, the sun will be going through Aquarius. Aquarius has just officially began. That's amazing. That right there alone, that we see this event taking place and the recognition that this is in fact the age of Aquarius now. Remember the song from back in, what was it, the 70s? This is the dawning. I shouldn't sing. I don't have a voice to sing with. I have a radio announcer voice, not a singer voice. So here we see the sun will be traveling through that water that's poured out in Aquarius during that 1,000 years. As a matter of fact, right there where the sun is right now is where it will be in 1,000 years from now. You can all go look it up if you like, on March the 17th. On March the 17th, that's where the sun will be, right there. All right. In the year 3031, as we believe, tribulation will last the 7 years and be over with in 2031. Where am I at? Here. All right. So I noticed that from Purim, February the 29th, to March the 20th, remember, March the 20th is the day that Jesus resurrected Lazarus. Remember in the Bible it says, and the or the prince of Persia resisted me for 21 days. But here I am now. 21 days after Purim. Of course, this is just math. We're not saying that that's when it's going to happen. I really hope it happens on the midst, which is March 16th, the midst of the year, and at nightfall, the midst of the day on March the 16th. So 4 days later is when Jesus resurrects Lazarus. And then we have this 21 days, which I find very telling that it matches. All right. We are going to have on the 25th, which you see that's at 12:53 a.m., which means it's actually the night of the 24th. We are going to have a lunar eclipse. Nobody's talking about the lunar eclipse. Everybody's talking about the solar eclipse. The lunar eclipse will take place at 1 a.m. here Eastern Standard Time, but it will take place on the 24th out in the West Coast. So, what is the 24th? Let's take a look at the 24th. What happens on the 24th? The 24th, why it's the day that Jesus had a meal with Mary and Martha. And the dead in Christ must rise first. When did Lazarus rise? He rose on the 20th. The 20th is 4 days after he died. It's 3 days after the head of the year. You could almost say it's 3.5 days because it might be the 84 hours. Didn't even think about that till just now. 84 hours after March 17th happens at nightfall. Maybe he was resurrected in the middle of the day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know how long. I know it took Jesus 2 days to walk there, and he sat still for 2 days. So are we talking about, 84 hours? So it would be into the fourth day, obviously, on 84 hours. But the 24th here is when that meal occurs. And that's kind of what the bride is looking forward to, right? We're looking forward to going to the wedding supper of the Lamb. It'll be an awesome day, March 20th and March 24th. Let me go back to where I was, if I can find it. Here. No. Here. So that's the 24th. That's the day that they had this meal. Awesome, right? Now, the solar eclipse happens on March the 8th, or April the 8th, I'm sorry, on April the 8th. It happens 2 weeks later after the lunar eclipse happens. So April the 8th does not show up on my timeline, which tells me personally, and anyone who sees what I'm seeing with with the way Jesus spoke on the cross, the color of his robe. We have three different colors. We have a red robe, we have a brilliant white robe, and we have a purple robe. The robe changes color. That wasn't their, what are they, colorblind? No, it wasn't the different way that they spoke. No, it was what they saw because of the group that they were in, because of the dispensation that they were in, because of, were they the bride, were they the tribulation saint, or were they the Jew? That's why they saw different colors. And the bride saw a brilliant white robe. So I don't have April the 8th on the timeline. April the 10th is where Jesus returns to Thomas in the upper room. Now, that tells me, and I'll tell you, I've been working this timeline for quite some time now, and every single time, including where, and Symphony was talking about this on God a Minute, where when Jupiter and Uranus, or was it the moon, the blood moon crossed, it was Uranus, I believe it was Uranus, crossed Uranus. It was exactly 40 days after Jesus was born, to the very day. And as it crossed, the blood moon turned white. At that exact moment, it was incredible. And when I saw that, I went straight to the timeline and said, what does this 40 days mean? And then I found it. A woman is unclean for 40 days after she has a male child. And she had the male child on September the 30th. And then I believe it was November the 8th. I have to look at the timeline, but November the 8th, I believe, is when that the blood moon turned white as snow as it eclipsed Uranus. So that was absolutely incredible for me. And that happened last year. So you know that the bride is left alone for more than a year, but less than 2 years. And the groom goes off That was a big mosquito. And the groom goes off to add a room to his father's house in anticipation of returning to get the bride. And so the bride, of course, is waiting in anticipation for her groom to return to get her. And that's us. That's what we're doing. We're waiting for that moment to occur. I find it also very, very telling that this year, first of all, they're calling it 5784, and they are correct because on March the 17th, it switched over to 5784. They're saying that this event happens on Friday at nightfall on March 30th, becoming March 29th, becoming March the 30th. Now, March the 30th is the day that Jesus went to the cross. The anniversary of it is always on March 30th. And here we have them talking about the red heifer. I said this to Spinebreaker when I was in the chat talking to him. I said, I didn't want to say I guarantee, but I guarantee they are going to sacrifice that red heifer on March the 30th, just like they sacrificed Jesus on March the 30th during Passover, not even remotely recognizing that they were sacrificing the true sacrifice. They still don't know that they sacrificed the only true sacrifice. They still don't know it. They won't know it for the full 7 years of the tribulation. So I said, how much do you want to bet that on March 30th, they will they don't need to sacrifice the red heifer on any particular day. They need to sacrifice it and burn it up completely, like the Bible says, and save those ashes to sanctify the temple, which Passover for them is the 23rd. I've been saying that all year. I'm like, since I noticed it in September, I'm like, where did they find those extra 23 days? What in the world? Why is Passover? It says very clearly, after the flood, you go 150 days and you land on the cross. You land on the day the waters began to recede. This is the day that Jesus went down into the grave. Where are they getting the extra 23 days? That's where they got them. They're going to sacrifice. Watch. Just like they made the mistake of sacrificing Jesus on the Passover, they're going to sacrifice this cow, this heifer, this red heifer, on the true Passover of March the 30th. Watch. Just watch it happen. They're going to hold the ashes until the 23rd, but they're going to make that sacrifice on the 30th. Watch it happen. All right. When I saw this, I was like, nuh-uh. I had said this several times. I had thought it a million times, but I'm like, there's no way, because their Passover is literally 23 days after the Passover that I show on the timeline. There's no way. And then I see this. This is what I see. They are going to sacrifice that red heifer on Saturday, the Sabbath of March the 30th. Isn't that incredible how it is beginning to line up? Every piece of the puzzle is beginning to fall into place. Isn't it incredible if this actually happens on March 30th? Now, I suspect we won't be here. I suspect that we're gone by March 16th. I suspect that we will definitely be gone before this eclipse takes place. I suspect we'll be gone before the lunar eclipse takes place. But I guess we'll see, right? This is my favorite verse. Hangs on the wall behind me. It has for years. I don't recall. There was some conversation that I had with Gina in the Discord in Gina News about this. I don't recall if she told me to hang it or it's been years now. I don't recall the exact conversation. She'll tell me, or she'll make a comment in here and I'll pin it. In that comment, Gina, can you put our Discord and remind me about why I hang this behind me? I know it had something to do with you. I just don't recall exactly what it was. But put that in a comment along with our Discord. And people, we've our Discord's really grown. We're over 1,800 now in there. It's mostly for Gina News, honestly. She brings all the news, and there's a lot of math. There's a whole lot of math that goes on in my room and in Patrick's room from End Time Watchmen. Sorry about that, Patrick. I keep doing that. End Time Watchmen. He does a lot of math in his room. My Discord's a little different. Each YouTuber that I find that desires a room of their own, you can actually go in there and talk to Patrick. It might be called Repo Man 64's Discord, but that's his room, and he operates and runs his own room. He is a moderator in his own room. Well, yeah, I think he's a moderator on the whole thing. I don't know how that works. Gina sets all that up, but that's his room, and you can actually go in there and talk directly to him. There's several of the watchmen that are in there that you can go and talk to. I have several watchmen that never go in there, but I still post their videos in there so we can discuss in that room about their topic. We have other rooms for other topics, but that room is specifically for that topic, and it's really, really nice and peaceful in there. No drama going on in there. Every now and again, some jumps up, but for the most part, it's very calm and very, very. Everybody brings their piece of the puzzle. I get to see your pieces of puzzle. This is great because we're going to come together in heaven with our piece of the puzzle, and we're going to set it down. And that puzzle will not be built here on earth. I've told you before, Amos 3:7. God ultimately is going to tell us. We're going to be studying and researching and trying to figure it out, but at the end of the day, God is going to tell us, and we'll show up there. We'll put that puzzle together. So, no man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up in the last day. Now, I always thought the last day simply meant, you know, the last day for each of these groups: the bride, the tribulation saints, and the Jew. And then, of course, the 144,000 or Philip, we learned, I'm going to show you that in a second. That blew my mind. That literally blew my mind about what that brother, was it Pastor Jimmy, found out. That set me off on a whole a whole investigation to try to figure out. But anyway, my favorite verse hangs on the wall behind me, John 6:44. But I think the last day is the last day of the year. I think it's March 16th, but we'll see. We're coming up on it here in a couple of weeks. This month, and I've showed you this before, this is the very first law that God handed down to Moses. It's the first recorded law. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. That simply means, in Hebrew, Rosh Hashanah. That's what it means. Prior to this, it was located on September the 15th. It was moved to March the 17th. Subsequently, after this, remember the menorah, the seven feasts that God set up with Moses did not exist yet. They did not exist. The only thing that existed was Rosh Hashanah, and it's only a term. It's not something that it's just a term, and it happened on September the 15th, prior to it being moved to March the 17th. After that, in Leviticus, now he sets up the seven feasts. Did God change something? Why, yes, he did. There were no feasts prior to this, prior to God giving them to Moses, prior to the flood, prior to this moment right here in time with Moses. The uh, there was no law established. They were not under the law. They came under the law here with Moses. So God changed something. Did God change because he changed something? No, God does not change at all. But he did change the head of the year. It's very clear here. This literally means Rosh Hashanah. This is exactly what it means. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. He goes on and talks about the 10th day. You should take a lamb into your house. And on the 14th day, you hold it for 4 days. You shall sacrifice. He's literally talking about Jesus here. He's literally explaining, and they've had this. The Jews have had this. They still have it. They've always had this. But for some reason, they haven't quite made that connection yet that they took Jesus during the triumphant entry. Jesus went in there willingly as the sacrificial lamb on the 10th day of Nisan. And then on the 14th day, they took him and they scourged him. They put a crown of thorns on him. They stripped him naked and cast lots for his clothing. They hung him on a cross. They gave him vinegar. They stabbed him in the side. They whipped him 39 lashes. They did all of this stuff to him. And they still, to this day, have not put together that Jesus is what God was speaking of here in Leviticus. Well, in Leviticus, this is Exodus, but in Leviticus 23 or 25, where he sets it up, they still haven't put that piece of the puzzle together yet, but they will. They will put it together. That there it is, Feast of Trumpets. Now, by the time we get to Leviticus 23:23, we read here, this is when God reclaims that day of September the 15th. He reclaims it, and he says, this is the Feast of Trumpets. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the seventh month and first day. Now, when you do a simple count from Nisan 1, and you get to the seventh month and first day, Nisan 1 being March 17th, you will land on September the 15th perfectly. Every single year is the same. Now, they have a blowing of trumpets, but remember that Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day feast, and they blow the trumpet. I think they said it was 99 times each day for 2 days. Here on trumpets, they blow it for 1 day. It is a holy convocation, and it is the Feast of Trumpets on this day. Rosh Hashanah is not on this day. Leviticus 23 does not say that this is where the law is handed. Why didn't God say, well, on this day, it's also the head of the year? But he didn't. God, of course, knows that he moved the head of the year, and so did Jesus, and that's why Jesus sat still for those 2 days, for us to figure it out. After 2,000 years, we finally figure out why Jesus sat still for 2 days when he found out his best friend was dead, the one that he loved was dead. Why did he sit still? Because he was obeying the law that he himself created. He was showing us that that was Rosh Hashanah. Feast of Trumpets is a 1-day feast. They will blow trumpets on this day, 1 day. It happens on the seventh month, the first day. This is where Rosh Hashanah used to be, but it was moved prior to Feast of Trumpets being enacted later on down in Leviticus 23, well after Exodus. This guy right here, see it down here, I was watching Prophetic Watchman, Peter over there, Prophetic Watchman 88, talk about Zipporah. It was incredible a video. I really enjoyed that. He's still on there behind me. So I showed you this before. This is what set me off. I had never, ever heard anybody say this before. Incredible, incredible. This guy says this. He says that, why do we think that there's a rapture for the bride? And we think that there's this, I guess we should call it harvest, just so that I don't, just so that I can stay in line with with Wayne over at the We Are the Overcomers. Why is there a harvest of the bride, a harvest of the tribulation saint, and a harvest of the Jew? But what about the 144,000? What about where in the Bible it says that there is this harvest of the Jew from around the world that suddenly will appear in Israel? And he said that. He said, reread Psalms 90:10 with the thought, well, he didn't say this, this is what I thought, but he said that the Jews, because of the verse we find where Philip baptized, remember, he sees the eunuch on the chariot reading the Torah. And God tells Philip, go over there and talk to him. Or an angel does, I don't recall exactly, paraphrasing. He goes over there, talks to the eunuch, and the eunuch says, I want to be baptized. He's like, well, now, before you do that, I need to hear what you say, what comes out of your mouth. Do you believe that Jesus Christ came here, the Son of God, died on a cross, rose on the third day, and paid the penalty for your sins? And he said, yes, I do. That's when he became saved. He became saved at that moment. Everything after that is an outward expression. Faith without works is dead. People get confused on that. There is evidence that you're saved when you have an outward expression of what's going on in your heart. And immediately the eunuch is saved, and immediately he wants to be baptized, but he's already saved. He goes down, and everybody confuses this verse and says, that's what he got saved when he got baptized. No, he didn't. He got saved prior to that. Read the verse very carefully, and you'll see that he believed, then he wanted to be baptized. As a matter of fact, um, Philip wouldn't baptize him until he made that public statement that he believed. So uh, now, then Pastor Jimmy says that Philip was also gathered or raptured, and he was moved 50 miles. He was in Gaza. He was moved 50 miles north to, I'm going to forget the name of the town. Yeah, I forgot the name of the town, but he was moved 50 miles north. He was moved in from Gaza into Egypt, into Israel. And he says that all the Jews from around the world, the ones even say, I don't want to go. There's a lot of Jews say, I don't want to go back to Israel. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. I don't want to be there. God's going to move them. And I was like, what? Now, wait a second. If that's true, and God is going to move them, that tells me that maybe Psalms 90:10 is speaking to the Jew and not to the bride. And that's why it appears as though we have passed the fig tree generation timeline, and we're still trying to squeeze it in. I know that Isaiah 53 is very convincing on what he shows. And I'm not going to deny him his piece of the puzzle. He might be right, or we both might be right. What if that, and we fly away, is all the Jews from around the world reappearing suddenly in Israel to protect them, even though they don't understand it? Once the rapture occurs, at some point after the rapture occurs, they will be transported back to Israel because there's going to be so many terrifying things going on all around this planet. But God is going to supernaturally protect Israel. And just like Philip being moved, every Jew is being moved. I know, right? That was mind blowing. When he said that, it set me off on a whole rabbit trail. And he made a video a day ago called Philip's Rapture and Apocalyptic Parallels of his, I don't know what else it says. Oh, of his story. It says it in the picture. So, yes, please go watch Pastor Jimmy's video here, Last Days Awakening. It's, again, mind blowing. Another piece of the puzzle. We're all just working together here trying to figure this out. Oh, there he is. Peter, he did a really good video on Zipporah. I wanted to give him kudos on that. Good job. Really enjoyed that. All right. So I don't, you'll have to go look up the passage on, well, I can do it real quick. Let's just do this. Why not? All right. Psalms 90:10. And the days of our years are 60 and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. For it is soon cut off, and we fly away. What if that verse is speaking to the Jews being translated back into Jerusalem, and it has nothing to do with the bride? Like we have thought for so long that this passage is speaking to the bride, and we're sitting here going, oh, 80 years, wow. Well, you're not 81 until you're 81, so you're still 80 for that entire year, all the way up until March the 13th, and then they turn 81. But what if the rapture occurs and there is a period of time that fall within the 70 to 80 years that the Jews are flown away? They fly away. It doesn't say rapture or caught up. It says fly away. I'd be curious for somebody to do a little study on that fly away. Could that be the same term that was used for Philip when he flew away 50 miles north into Israel from Gaza? Could that be the same? Are we now being revealed and understanding here in the last moments of a verse that we thought forever belonged to the bride because we thought it was a rapture verse, as being a rapture of sorts of the Jews being transported around the world to Israel to be protected, supernaturally protected during the tribulation period. I don't know. It's a thought that I had when Jimmy said that. I went off down a whole rabbit trail, and that's where I wound up. And I am curious in Discord or from you in the comments section, or if you go into Discord, like I said, Gina will remind me why she had something to do with that. I know she had something to do with that. And also put a link to the Discord in the comments, and go in there into my room or in Patrick's room, End Time Watchman, and if you find anything that links that fly away with Philip as opposed to the bride, I don't think it's the bride anymore. I don't think it's talking to the bride. We're there's not 7 years left. There's not 7 years left. So I don't know. I really don't know. So um, I don't know. I mean, we fly away before the 7 years. We've been saying that for how many years? You know, it worked a few years ago, but it just we stretched it out as far as we could. It just doesn't work anymore. Are we sure that's talking to us, or is it talking to the Jew, just like Philip being moved? I mean, my mind was blown when literally my jaw dropped open when Pastor Jimmy said that, and I was like, oh, the implications. Oh, the math that I need to do now. Why did you say that, Pastor Jimmy? You set me off to research this now. That fixes the Psalms 90:10 passage as giving us, in essence, another 3.5 years because the Jews will have to be protected in 3.5 years from now when the Great Tribulation begins. So I know, right? Um, and I don't know. I mean, somebody needs to sit down and do a timeline on that one. I'd love to see that timeline. Equal Symphony, you're an engineer. See if you could put that on a timeline. That would be something else. What if the flyaway is the Jew being transported back, like Pastor Jimmy said? Is it Last Day's Awakening, I believe. So anyway, Repo Man 64, this is fun. This is what we enjoy. This study that we go through, this math that we go through, this checking and rechecking these verses and carrying our piece of puzzle. And we're trying to put this puzzle together. I don't have all the pieces. You're not supposed to bring me all your pieces. Those are your pieces. We're going to wind up somewhere in a big room. Whenever I build a puzzle, I get my whole family involved. It's 1,000 piece puzzle, and there's just all of us around the table. Uh, I'm looking for green because I'm building the flower. Okay, here's a green. You can have it. I'm looking for red because I'm building the other flower and the leaf. And so we work together to build this puzzle, and that's how puzzles are built. People don't build puzzles by themselves. I suppose they do. I mean, of course, there's some people that just enjoy building puzzles by themselves. But there is no condemnation, obviously, if you have a table full of people working together, building this puzzle. It is just so much fun. And this has been the last 5 years, honestly, has been so enlightening. And I have learned so much from you all out there with your pieces of puzzle and watching everything. Um, this is almost like a goodbye video because I think we're coming right to the end of this. You see everything. You can watch Watchwoman 65 and a Global Rapture Watch. Like I said, I follow 260 channels. I don't have time to watch. I can watch 10% of all those channels and listen to them during the day, but I don't come close. But enjoy listening to Global Rapture Watchers. He's awesome, and just the information that they bring and the understanding they have is just incredible. So anyway, it's like I said, still got that cough. This is a almost like a goodbye video. Yes, I'll be back, but we're winding down. We're coming to the end of this. So many people are like, I don't know how much longer I can take this. Trust me, I've been building timelines for 20 years. You can take it. You'll be okay. No, it's not fun, but the harder it is now, the more grateful you're going to be when you get to heaven. The more, and I hate to say it like this because my feet are killing me. I can barely walk anymore. I'm almost 60. My back hurts. It just, and um, always having issues with that surgery I had. It's no fun. I just don't do a lot of complaining about it because I don't want to wear you out about it because I think that this is this research we do is so much more rewarding than anything else I've ever done, and I think we're coming to the end of this. If Patrick at End Time Watchman is correct, he has done math to the 16th. I have heard other channels have done math to the 16th. Of course, I knew, and honestly, of course I believe in the timeline. I believe in Jesus first, but everything on that timeline is speaking about Jesus and the events of his life and the things he did throughout that all of those years falling together in 1 year timeline. Um, I believe the timeline is accurate, and it's just again amazing when major events take place. October the 7th, really? Why would that ever fall in my timeline? Perfectly. Why would it? But it did. The moon going from blood red to white as it eclipsed Uranus. How did that happen 40 days after Jesus was born on September the 30th? How did that happen? Exactly 40 days. I don't know how that happened. So, um, inevitably, what I see is that even though somebody comes up with the date or similar date or close to it, and they're on a completely different timeline. They're all culminating. And so I never say, if you don't believe in my timeline, if you make fun of my timeline, I don't care. Because God is going to be the one in Amos 3:7 that's going to tell us. He's going to make them all conjoin. They're all going to conjunct together. And is that a word? Conjunct? Conjunction? Conjunct. Yeah, I like it. We'll use it. All the timelines will merge together. So, all right. Um, RepoMan64, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Like it because it helps with the algorithm. And this type of stuff I think is super important to the tribulation saint, which is always on the back of my mind. I'm always thinking about family and friends that will be left here and the fact that they need this warning. Um, and so it's very important to me that the information is left behind. I think we're going to have a power outage for the first 3 days, but all this stuff's going to come back up. No, I don't think that YouTube is going to systematically wipe out anything that's religious. I don't think God's going to allow that because He said they get a double portion. And my YouTube channel is going to explode to 1 million after the rapture, not before. After the rapture. This will be a good source of information. All y'all's videos, all y'all's pieces of the puzzle that you're trying to put together, all of this stuff that we're doing, those saints get a double portion and it is going to help them. And I firmly believe that. Some of you are like, that's all going to be wiped out. No, it's not. It's not going to be wiped out. This information has been going on for a very long time, and it's not just going to be thrown away. God is going to use it for the tribulation saints. I don't think God's going to give permission to Satan and allow him to do that. So, all right. I said, like, comment, share. Go to a quiet place by yourself. Nobody needs to know, and you don't need to tell anybody except the Lord in your heart. Um, we're out of time. We are out of time. We are going home very, very soon. We're out of time. And this is no time to play around with your soul. If you find yourself here after the rapture, do not accept the mark. Kneel down, throw off everything you ever thought you knew, and go to the basics. Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, and his blood has covered me eternally. And you will be saved in the tribulation. All right, Repo Man 64. We'll chat with you again. Never, or maybe in a couple days. I don't know.